These past couple of years, I've been really enjoying horror films. Horror itself is such an eclectic genre of movies. You got horror comedy, horror drama, sci-fi horror, slasher horror, art house horror. There's so much to enjoy in these types of films that they don't even have to be that scary anymore. It's wild, it's a feeling. 2022 just so happened to provide a good mix of different horror movies, and I watched a lot of them. So, the purpose of this video is to showcase my favorite 22 horror movies from 2022. Fresh is the directorial debut of Mimi Cave, and we need more movies like this. A fun horror thriller that cleverly subverts expectations. This movie is a dark look into the world of dating. Sebastian Stan is so goddamn likable, so seeing him turn up the terror as he tries to dismantle the outstanding Daisy Edgar Jones is such an interesting cat and mouse dynamic. In fact, Daisy Edgar Jones stole the show with her harrowing and relatable performance. I'd love to see more of her in future projects. Who knew that eating people could be so sexy? The 2022 Scream honestly slays. It's impressively able to be both an engaging contemporary slasher while also living up to the franchise's legacy, which is hard to do. Great characters, excellent satire. It's so funny how it dips between horror fiction and subreddit headcanon. And then Jenna Ortega was great. Rebecca Hall gave a hell of a performance in the fiendish psychological horror thriller Resurrection. Please do not sleep on this film. A wicked and stressful descent into paranoia, it leaves you just as tense and chaotic as Hall. In fact, the unbroken 8-minute monologue she gives to that poor intern halfway through the film is so raw and demented. I was shook. We also get Tim Roth going full goblin mode and an ending that teeters the line between reality and delusion that has you clutching your chest until it's all over. If you like the bizarre premise of 2009's Orphan, then you are going to love the prequel Orphan First Kill, which has some more of little old Esther killing people. Isabel Fuhrman was absolutely amazing in this, and the loops that the filmmakers had to go through to make sure the film even worked is impressive. At first, as I was watching it, it felt a little bit more of the same, nothing too special, even a little bit boring, but then there's a twist that blew me away and had me glued to the edge of my seat. This is some good fast food horror that hits the spot. Esther is in her Lana Del Rey era. Nope is Jordan Peele's epic horror blockbuster that masterfully mixes familiar genre filmmaking with Peele's strange but distinct style. Though it does have some bizarre and intense horror sequences, its real excellence is in its cast and its story about legacy and family. It's its own thing, and that feels special. Keke Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya are perfect on-screen siblings. Watcher is like It Follows if Micah Monroe's character followed back. This is a beautifully shot, intense thriller that feels all too real, and that in itself is scary. We all people watch at times, but what if we are the ones being watched and stalked? Monroe kills it in this. This is subtle, but very real horror. Also, if you want some more of Monroe, I highly recommend the Paramount Plus exclusive Significant Other. She was really good in that. If you liked Alex Garland's Annihilation, you might like this surprisingly good and eerie thriller. There's a really cool twist in it, so I highly recommend it. Terrifier 2 was in the news this year with stories of people fainting during screenings. Personally, though the violence and gore is over the top, I didn't think it was that traumatic. Regardless, Damien Leone was firing off on all cylinders for the creepy clown movie. Higher production, better acting, and incredible gore, Art the Clown continues to be an absolute menace. It's nasty, it's long, and it's not a casual watch. But if you like seeing sadistic clown demons tear teenagers apart into raw meat, then this is the movie for you. And speaking of depraved and sadistic films, I also really enjoyed the Taiwanese zombie pandemic hybrid The Sadness. It's ruthless, it's brutal, it's trigger-inducing, but holy shit, did the infected look scary as fuck. Black eyes and all smiles. This movie is hard to stomach and super bleak, but still a unique addition to the zombie catalog. People are calling it the nihilistic and tasteless version of Train to Busan. I think it's more akin to an inhumanely cruel version of The Crazies, but one thing's for sure, it's a gore fanatic's wet dream. Prey is a legacy movie done right. A Predator prequel that returns to basics with a unique period setting and plenty of brutal violence. Amber Midthunder does not play, and her canine best friend was such a good boy. All coming-of-age movies should have the main character fight a predator in combat. And then Hellraiser is a pretty sweet reimagining of Clive Barker's original. The practical effects are gory and mesmerizing, dangerous, cold, and dark. It feels different enough while still respecting the original source material. Those Cenobites hit different. It was a lot better than I was expecting. If you want something on the bizarre side, I recommend the cosmic horror bottle film Glorious, where a man is trapped in a bathroom with an eldritch god behind a glory hole, voiced by J.K. Simmons. It's intriguing, it's comedic, and the final twist fucked me up. I absolutely loved it. It's a poignant story hidden within elaborate madness. If you're in the mood for a beautifully avant-garde foreign creature feature, then I highly recommend the Finnish psychological body horror Hatching. Like last year's Lamb, this movie stole my heart with its strange metaphor style of movie making, with an adorable killer bird monster that is horrifyingly convincing with its meticulous practical design. There's a lot you could argue this movie is about, but regardless of its innermost themes and symbols, it's still a great visceral watch. Smile had no right to be as good as it actually was. The trailers didn't do it justice. Watching it in theaters was insane because of how loud and abrasive it was. It was a creepy compilation of jump scares in where the loud sound mixed with the erratic visuals created a disorientation that makes you sympathize with protagonist Rose's deteriorating mind. Really, it stylistically felt like a panic attack with each jump scare, and those last 10 minutes were a fucking ride. Great eldritch terror. Barbarian is the Malignant of 2022. It pulls no punches with its insanity. Sometimes you start watching a movie and you just keep asking yourself, what the fuck is happening? This might make people want to turn off the film, but for me, it just made me want to descend further into its absurdity. Playing on people's preconceived notions of paranoia, it manages to be a deeply rewarding and deeply unsettling experience. Make no mistake, this is not a comedy with horror elements. This is a deeply horrific movie that just so happens to easily incorporate hilarious moments. Maximize it by watching it with friends like I did with my coworkers. And watch out for tetas locas or you'll have a bad time at the Barbary Airbnb. Though not as scary as its predecessor, VHS 99 is balls to the walls insane fun. Horror anthologies are always a mixed bag, but the shorts in this film are all clever, creepy, and convincing. This genre is great at giving us creative horror trinkets that can both be frightening and engaging. Shredding, Suicide Bid, and To Hell and Back were the standout shorts that I highly recommend. Shredding hit close to home with its focus on musicians doing dumbass shit. I vibed with Anchor so hard, knowing you shouldn't fuck with the dead. The zombie bed is definitely creepy, and when shit goes down, it gets super unsettling. Then we had Suicide Bid, which boasts some great makeup effects with an undead corpse, and I love the concept of mean girls getting what's coming to them. A little common sense though, never let people trick you into being buried alive. And then, To Hell and Back is such an interesting concept of accidentally going to hell, and the shenanigans of trying to get back to Earth. I would watch a whole movie on this concept. All hail Mabel the Skullbiter. X is A24's homage to horny 70s slasher set in rural Texas. Who knew making a porno could be so dangerous? Less art house, but more horror. I love the campiness. I love the softcore sexiness. Mia Goth was a star as she continuously refused to accept a life that she didn't deserve. All hail our horror queen. Honestly, maybe all the killing wouldn't have happened if they had just let Granny do a scene. Honestly, this was my favorite horror movie of the year for the longest part of 2022. Though coined as the pornification of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it really does stand out on its own with the over-the-top deaths and the perfect ensemble cast. Really, it was just nice to see Jenna Ortega acting in this elevated horror that she loves so much. After all, there's nothing scarier than horny old people. And besides delivering a great homage to Texas Chainsaw, Ty West then pulled double duty by releasing the prequel to X, Pearl, that is less sleazy slasher and much more dramatic art horror. A captivating character study cleverly disguised in a 1918 American Psycho backdrop. Mia Goth, again, slays, and it's quite the journey to see her character devolve from isolated, unhinged farm girl to unhinged, vengeful killer. My favorite Letterboxd review said that this is basically The Wizard of Oz, but if Dorothy was so horny that she started killing people. Honestly, I didn't care for this movie on first watch, but the more I interacted with it and reflected on it, I grew to really enjoy its contained chaos. Devil's Skettle on Tumblr really put it into perspective for me. They said, Pearl is all about rot and sickness, about festering and decay, about deterioration and contagion and paranoia and jealousy. It's about seeing anger and the insidious way that things can build and take over, and the collapse of the boundaries between physical, emotional, and mental corruption, and seeing the reality underneath a facade of wellness, and of course, complete disassociation from that reality. This was Mia Goth's villain origin story. Mad God, from a craftsman's perspective, is an immersive piece of art. The gorgeous use of stop-motion animation, mixed with its experimental storytelling, makes for both a beautiful and equally disgusting and vile movie-watching experience. But that's a good thing. For all the blood, mud, and piss throughout, you can still see that Phil Tippett puts his whole heart and soul into this passion project, and his dedication to it is worth watching it at the very least. This is not for casual moviegoers, and it isn't necessarily for traditional horror film enthusiasts. While there are some truly horrifying sequences, it is a pure dystopian nightmare that just made me feel both confused and profoundly sad. But I think that was the point. And then there was Deadstream, which was a hidden gem of a film exclusively on Shudder made by husband and wife duo Joseph and Vanessa Winter. Not so much scary as it's creepy, this is a clever found footage horror comedy that boasts some really good looking practical effects and monsters. Kind of a Gen Z version of the Blair Witch Project, it's an excellent take on influencer culture with boisterous Sean Ruddy, a character who can come off as annoying, but who endears the audience with his passion. It's a ridiculously silly and really heartfelt movie, and it 100% made me fucking cackle, laugh a handful of times. And this is where the magic shines. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is basically A24's Among Us. Filled with an impeccable cast with hot girl, pop girl, rich girl energy, it just vibes super hard. A fun horror movie as well as a cheeky satire on Gen Z nihilistic narcissism. It's both silly and chaotic. This is some of the most fun I had all year. Rachel Sennott as Alice was pure joy. Let her have her podcast. A bunch of dumb rich kids destroying themselves because of TikTok culture. And really, I just appreciate how it's an amalgamation of an Agatha Christie murder mystery combined with elements of both Mean Girls and Euphoria and Lord of the Flies. There is so much in this that could have made it fall apart, but the ensemble cast is perfect. They make it work with their ridiculous chemistry. I would watch a series of these Gen Z sociopaths getting into all kinds of insane shenanigans any time of the week. Incantation was something really special. Another great example of how the horror genre can reinvent itself to showcase truly horrific and unique movie-watching experiences. It's one of the most effective and disturbing films of the year. A unique and oddly interactive Taiwanese found footage folk horror. It effectively gets under your skin in both its style and intrigue. I feel like this film works because it balances a supernatural mystery and gives just enough to horrify you, but you, the viewer, can then descend even further with your own research, beliefs, and assumptions. The lore behind the Mother Buddha and its cult ritualism is foreign enough to make me an outsider, but intriguing enough to want me to learn more. Curses and blessings, this movie is not for the superstitious. Love the twist and utter betrayal. In the end, the team that gave us Sinister delivered my favorite movie of 22, The Black Phone, an engaging coming-of-age thriller with stylized horror elements that made for both a fun and engaging movie-watching experience. Whereas Sinister is more of a bleak and traditional horror movie, The Black Phone is surprisingly full of heart. The Shaw siblings are kids that you root for, and Ethan Hawke as the grabber is captivating and horrifying. It gives off strong It vibes, but I think that's a good thing. Also, can we have Madeline McGraw in everything? Her energy and humor made this film stand out that much more. I'd love to see a series where we see Gwen Shaw use her supernatural gifts to catch killers. She had the best line in the movie that I was not expecting. There were better horror movies this year, but this was my favorite.